Hi, 8th graders. Sorry I can't be there today. Today I'm going to teach you how to make a digital model in a program called Autodesk Maya that looks kind of like this one that you're seeing on your screen. You are welcome to listen to all of these directions all the way through, or you can pause the video and try some of them in Maya along the way. But before your next class, make sure you've listened to this entire video. So just to give you a little information about why we're using Maya. Maya is a program that will allow us to 3D model and animate or make pieces move our plate tectonics models, so that the reason being that your group, your whole plate tectonics group, will be able to see the same image in your mind when you begin to construct your designs out of foam. And this is hopefully going to save us a lot of time and money by not wasting materials. And this is a thing that we've been doing for the last 2 years. Previously in this project, students did not get to use Maya, and we found that a lot of them had a lot of difficulty seeing the same image as they went into the building phase, and they had multiple drafts of their build, and it took them a lot longer. So the goal of using this technology, while it's really fun, which may be a matter of opinion, I recognize, it's also because it's very useful in this project so that all of you can see the same design in your head when you get ready to actually cut these pieces out of foam. So today I'm going to show you the modeling portions that you're going to be working on in Maya, and I know this will be a review for some of you. I recognize that. I know that animation will be new for a lot of you, and we'll get to that next time, but we're going to start with the basics, and this Maya activity will actually have 2 phases. The first phase will be you guys creating just a basic crust, one piece of crust, one plate on top of a mantle, and making that piece of crust move on top of the mantle, like the video you saw at the beginning. And everyone will do this on their own and submit a file to me so that I know everyone understands the basic skills. And then after that, once you guys know more about your individual locations, you'll use Maya to design your models and for your specific locations, and then you'll submit that file as a group. I know that this phase is going to have some more technically difficult pieces, so that's a group grade, whereas this is just the basics that I expect you to know, so I expect every individual to submit their own file for that part. So I'm going to get into the basics of Maya here, the modeling basics. I of course have criteria. What would this be if Miss Papa did not have some criteria? And you can see these criteria attached to Pilot if you want to. You can open them up on your own, but I'll be referring to them throughout this video. If I'm going through something too quickly, just rewind and listen to it again, and hopefully that makes sense. And if it doesn't, during your next class, you can ask me questions. At the end of this class period, you're not required to have all of these requirements completed. You're just going to try some of them out today. And if you get enough work done that you want to save it to the Dropbox that I've created on your STEM Foundations page, you can. And if you feel like you need to ask me questions, that's fine too. I'll be back during the next class and you can get those questions answered. So in order to get started, you're going to need to open Maya on your computer, which I'm on a Mac, so this is a little different, but on your computers, in the bottom left-hand corner, if you click that window that's down there, you'll be able to access a search menu, which will pop up in the upper right-hand corner, and in that little magnifying glass search bar, you're going to type in Autodesk Maya or just Maya, M-A-Y-A, and the program should come up, double-click on it, and then when you open it up, it should look like this. This is the Maya user interface, and the first thing we're going to do is make 2 rectangular prisms, because on our criteria list it says we need to have a rectangular prism for the crust and a rectangular prism for the mantle. And the way that we do that is by going up here to our polygon solids, which, by the way, I'll make this point now. There are probably 5 or 6 different ways to do everything in Maya, or most things in Maya. So if I show you a way that you don't typically use, those of you who are more experienced, and you know a different way to do the exact same thing, that's not a problem. You don't have to use my exact procedure as long as you're producing the same results. So you're going to click on the cube in the polygon tray and drop that onto your grid, and click on it again and get another one. And then we're going to change the dimensions of these, because the next requirement is that the dimensions of the mantle be 12 by 8 and then 3 units in height. So over here in what's called the channel box, which you can access by clicking this little button in the upper right hand corner, you can turn that on and off, we're going to change the scale of these rectangular prisms. So it was 12 by 8 by 3, so I'm going to type in 12 by 8 by 3. And you'll notice when I did that, that the height is not actually 3. That's because the y-axis is the vertical axis over here in Maya. So I actually want to switch these two and make my x and z 12 and 8, and then make my y 3, so that the height is set to 3 inches. You know, all models, final models that are going to the schools, are going to have a 3-inch mantle. So that's why that is set that way. And then for the other box, which I'm getting to just by clicking on it, I am going to look at the dimensions of that. It says I need 12 by 8, so that'll be my x and my z. And I need a height of 1 or 2 units, which depends on whether your location is on oceanic crust or continental crust. If you have a location that is on both, like one plate has some oceanic and one plate has some continental, like the Andes Mountains, you guys can pick whichever one you want. If you're modeling continental crust, you're going to pick 2 units. If you're modeling oceanic crust, you're going to pick 1. But if you have both at your location, just pick one or the other for now. You're only modeling one plate in this first step, so don't worry about picking like the thing that is exactly right for your location. If you have a little bit of both, it doesn't matter. 1 or 2 is fine. I'm going to go with 2, and I'm going to model continental crust. So I'm going to click on this object again, and I'm going to go over to the scale and say 12 by 8, and I'm going to set the height to 2 because I'm going to model continental crust. Now you can see that my rectangular prisms are overlapping each other now. I can change that, and actually by the end of this I want the crust sitting on top of the mantle. So I am going to have to move it at some point. And the way that we do that is with the move tool over here. You can adjust where each object is in space. You can also do that by translating it over here in the channel box. And there are, of course, many other ways you can change the location, but those are the two that I personally use most often. And you can see you can adjust it on just one axis or 2 or all 3 at the same time by clicking in on these different parts of the manipulator. I'm just simply using my left mouse button to click on these things like you would for most things that you do on the computer. If I want a different view than this, I can do a couple things. I can hold down the Alt key on my keyboard, ALT. It's on the left-hand side, bottom left-hand side. And I can hold down the left mouse key and I can rotate this around and look at it from a bunch of different angles. I can also hold down the Alt key and hold down the middle key on my mouse and pan side to side or up and down. And I can hold down the Alt key and hold down the right mouse button and zoom in and out. I can also zoom in and out by using the little scroll button in the middle. If I'm not holding it down, I'm just scrolling it back and forth. And then you can also change your view over here on the left-hand side. There's a one panel view, the perspective view, but you can click on this 4-panel view, excuse me, And you can get a front view, a top view, and a side view, which are going to be helpful in just a minute here. You can go back and forth between these views by using the spacebar, or you can use these buttons over here. So the next criterion is that the position be that one vertex is touching the origin, and in your crust and mantle model, you want the crust sitting on top of the mantle. So it's really going to be one bottom vertex of the mantle touching the origin at 0, 0, 0. So I'll show you how to do that next. There are several ways you can do this, as always. This manipulator is set to the very center of this object, so halfway down on X, halfway on Z, and halfway on Y, all three of those. So you could figure out where that point is and adjust it in the translate section of the channel box, but I don't need you to be that specific. I do want you to try to get as close as possible, and the way that you can do that is by using your manipulator tools. So I can kind of get a sense here of if I'm going to go for this vertex right here, if the vertex is at the origin, which is right here, by the way, in the center of the grid, 0, 0, 0. And I can take this one and drag it up and drag it over. I can see that's not high enough because it's inside of the mantle, and I want it sitting just on top of the mantle with no space in between. But I'm not 100% sure, so I'm going to go back to my 4-panel view, and I'm going to look at this from the top and the side and the front. And I can see I'm a little bit off on the top. I'm going to actually push this back a little bit here and a little bit over here. And actually I'm going to move this over and adjust the bottom piece first, so that it looks like it's sitting right at the origin. And then I'll drag this one over again and try to line it up. And then from the front view, I can see that this isn't quite where it's supposed to be, so I'm going to use these tools to drag it down a little bit. And then from the side view, I can see that I need to adjust it even a little bit more. And by using all these views, I can make sure that from any perspective it's lined up pretty close to the origin. Now again, you could actually calculate like what position in space it needs to be at based on where the center of the object is located, which is fine if you want to attempt that. That's fine to do. But I am not expecting you to do that. Oh, there's still a little bit of space there between the crust and mantle. Now I think they're overlapping. Okay, so the height is at 4. I'm just going to take off a little bit of the height over here, so I can get a more specific. There, that looks better. Okay, so crust is sitting on top of the mantle. I'm going to go back to my perspective view. Here I just hit spacebar to get back in there. Remember, you can adjust it over here too. And now if I hold down Alt and the left mouse button, looks like that is pretty well aligned. Might want to move this just a little bit over, just a touch. Looks like a little too much. That looks a little bit better. Again, you don't have to make it perfect, but as close as you can. So now they're sitting on top of each other, and I'm going to go to the requirements, and it says the next thing I need to pay attention to is the shading. So we'll talk about that in part 2 of this tutorial, so you'll need to open up the next video.